On this week's episode, I put my horror movie knowledge to the test as we are officially in the spooky season. An interview with a SAG-AFTRA member who disrupted a Netflix show filming here in Massachusetts, and what movie is winning at the box office, but the reviews have been frightening. I'm James, and this is The Hub on Hollywood. All right, welcome back to another episode of The Hub on Hollywood. If you are not already, be sure to follow us on all the social media platforms at Hub on Hollywood. We are on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Stay up to date with the latest episodes, latest reviews, latest interviews, and everything else in between. Now, before I take a scary movie quiz, which I invite you to take with me, there will be a link down in the bio. We do have the latest news regarding the continuing actors strike, specifically about the recent picketing here in New England that shut down filming on a Netflix show, The Perfect Couple, on Nantucket Island in Massachusetts. Now, Jamie spoke with Michele Proude. She is a SAG-AFTRA member, and she tells the story about how they learned that Netflix was going to try filming scenes for The Perfect Couple, starring Nicole Kidman and Liev Schreiber, and what they did to stop it, as well as why they did that. It was a great interview. Here it is.
We are joined now with Michele Proude, who is kind enough to take some time to talk to us about her experience on Nantucket. So, Michele, let's just start from the beginning. You are an actress, correct?
Yes, I am.
So, how long have you been an actress here in New England?
Pretty much my whole life. And I first joined what was then Screen Actors Guild 30 years ago. So
Wow.
most of my life as a union member, always from here. I joined AFTRA shortly after SAG. And then, of course, in merger, we became SAG-AFTRA. And yeah, and so I'm a member who really believes that a worker is best protected by a union. I believe with all my heart that joining the union is the next step in your professional career. So when people ask me when to join the union, that's, what I tell them. And so I've also been a volunteer leader in the union for over 20 years, locally, first just on the SAG council and eventually a second vice president, first vice president. I was the first elected president of SAG-AFTRA New England after merger and served for 6 years here. And I currently hold a national vice president of mid-sized local seat. I try to put my money where my mouth is. I'm really dedicated to the union. But I will say, as a disclaimer, I'm speaking just as a member, not in any kind of official capacity.
Okay. Well, we're very happy to have you. And it's been a rough few months. It has definitely been a difficult strike and period of time for people who really rely on the work and the movies that are filmed here in New England. However, there's been so much at stake. So I imagine that you've been very busy on the picket lines and organizing and being there with your fellow members.
Absolutely. We're at a moment in time where always keep in mind that a strike is never the first choice. It's always a last resort. And we're in a moment in time where we couldn't afford not to strike. The issues that we're looking at that we need to achieve in this contract are things that can't wait until the next cycle in 3 years. And so that's why, again, you have a negotiating committee that unanimously supported a strike action. That is unprecedented in our union, that because the negotiating committee is made up of a bunch of different people from different places and different opinions and all of that. But the fact that cohesively they stood behind this strike action, it just gives you an idea of how important the needs are right now. And so, as the New England local, we didn't have any struck work here. We didn't have any studios. We didn't have any places that we would actually be picketing. We did have a couple of projects that we're filming. One of them was the project that was on Nantucket, and it had been filming in Chatham, and actually got shut down by the writer's strike back in May.
Right.
And so that production had shut down, and they had some filming that they had always been planning to do abroad in the fall. And as far as we knew, that was going to be the end of sort of that. So most of the actions that we've been doing have been rallies, and the support from members and the public has been incredible. Everywhere we go, every time we have a rally, we have great turnout. We have great support from other unions. It's a well-supported action that we're doing. But Nantucket was different because what happened was, after the writers got a tentative agreement, and then they were moving to a place where they were going to vote on it, and they had rescinded their strike order. That's kind of what happened this last week. And then we got word that filming was going to take place on Nantucket on the project from the spring. That involved, if you read the Nantucket paper, they kindly put all of the permitting information and, kind of directed us to themselves right there. But they said it's a scene that it doesn't involve any actors or writers. It's just a car driving down the street in a scene that's set as the 4th of July.
Right.
Said, who's driving that car?
Exactly.
That is our work. Those are our jobs.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about so much on the Hub on Hollywood. We've been on top of everything that's been happening, and we've talked so much about people's livelihoods and the things that people don't realize are people's livelihoods. So in a scene like that, typically a production which is a union production, which this is, right, the perfect couple,
Yes.
they have to pay a certain portion of the people, a certain percentage of the people that they hired to be the people walking in the backgrounds, to be the people driving the cars, or even the parked cars that are there. So when someone hears that, oh, they're just getting B-roll, they're just, getting some scenes of the island or whatever, that is our work, as you said. So I was hoping you could walk me through, and you've already started to a little bit. So you guys saw the notification in the newspaper that they were going to be shutting down some streets for this.
So, it's the great thing about it is that it actually originated from a member tip. A member became aware that production was setting up on the island, I think even before the article came out. And then other members saw the article and sent that to the union office, to our staff. And our paid staff, that's their job, is to help organize strike actions. And so there was some verification that, in fact, that was the plan. They were planning to film something that would be a violation, would be caught, something that would be our covered work. So it's struck work. And so it happened really quickly. So the filming was Thursday. We had a member event planned at Fenway Park, a strike support action for Fenway Park for Wednesday night. And I mean, Wednesday afternoon, we have a strike captains group. We got sort of a cryptic message: is anyone available for an event tomorrow? And, because the thing is, we didn't want to tip off production that we were coming, because then they might just move and we miss the opportunity to sort of, make our voice heard. And so those of us who responded found out, and in the meantime, we were planning another strike support event at the UAW on the same day. So some people thought it was that event. It was definitely last minute, grassroots, very quickly put together. Mm-hmm. So we had two staff, our executive director and a business rep, went down on the Wednesday night and checked into a hotel and stayed overnight. Because the thing is that Teamsters have a clause in their contract. They do not cross picket lines. Mm-hmm. So if you've got somebody that's holding a sign a picket line walking, even just two people walking, they won't roll in trucks and so forth. And of course, the Teamsters are the one that bring the equipment in.
Right.
So we wanted to make sure that we had a presence there as early as possible. And then another 7 of us took the 6:10 a.m. ferry from Hyannis, which meant we got home really late from the Red Sox, then had to get up while it was still, napped, got up while it was still dark, drove to Hyannis and caught the first ferry at 6:10. So by 7:30, we had 9 of us holding signs and walking the street. Yeah, it was, because again, we haven't had any real picket lines here. It was different from anything else. And we really felt like we were doing something important, because work stopped, like nothing happened. We first all got there and gathered, and we were told, oh, that, the local press is just across the street. And the photographer walked over with a woman and said, oh, this is the author of the book. And we were like, oh, great. Great.
Cool.
Except
nice. We're still going to pick it. Yeah.
She was there to tell us, how heartbroken she was. Like, we just need this one shot, and there's no actors or actresses or writers involved. It's just a car driving down the street, and if we don't get this shot now, it's going to get put off for another year. And it's just this one shot, and I'm sure that none of you care about this, but this is so important to me, and I'm heartbroken. Yeah.
And, well, it's important that you all get paid for this work that is entitled to you, and the rest is, I guess, too bad, so sad. But that's interesting and a little bit disheartening to hear.
You know what? To be fair, again, this project shut down because of the writer's strike. The writer's strike was over, so I could understand somebody who's not a part of the unions, either of them, to be a little bit confused. And, what I ultimately said to her was, I'm really sorry that you're heartbroken. But when you say there are no actors on set, you're talking about the principal actors. But the people who drive the car, the people who are on the sidewalk. Again, that's our work. Those are our jobs. And the contract that we're fighting for, it's for the people who work those jobs. It's the people who make scale. It's the people who rely on the union to protect their jobs that are benefiting the most from this contract. And I said, I'm really sorry that you were misled. But that wasn't on us. That's on Netflix, because they know. And they were dishonest about it. And there wasn't really much else to say after that. And, later on, word came back around that she's supportive and all of that. It's just,
right.
She's focused on her own thing. And I get that. But again, like, she lives on Nantucket. She's written a bunch of, books that sell. And I don't think that the strike made her unable to pay her bills or buy groceries, it just meant that the project's still going to happen. It's just going to be a little delayed.
Right.
And like I said to her, frankly, hopefully this will inspire them to hurry up and give us a contract, and we can just get it done next week. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
But I will say she was one of the very few people who didn't see it from our side. To a person, aside from her and like 1 or 2 other people, every single person came up to us and said, right on, I'm with you. You have my support. Of course, the first thing they said was, I thought the strike was over, because people were confused. We have the same employer. The AMPTP is a shared employer, the writers and for this particular kind of work. And so people were confused, and we said, well, that's the writers. We're the actors. We're still on strike. they haven't come to the table with us since July, and we still need a contract. And then they said, well, we are on your side, we support you. And that was a great feeling. And of course, the support from the other unions, the Teamsters, IATSE, everybody gets it. We're fortunate that we are so supported across the board. Because again, the things we're asking for aren't crazy. There are things that we actually genuinely need, and there are things that impact other workers and other unions. Just a wage increase that is reflective of inflation. The whole artificial intelligence piece. I mean, I think everybody has especially creatives of any kind, have reason to be concerned about how their image might be digested by a computer and turn up elsewhere. And then how do we, especially as performers, we're both the labor and the product. So how do we protect that and make sure that we still own our own image and our own work? It's one thing to be hired for a project and then your work is in that project and you're compensated for that project. But once you start taking pieces of that and digesting it and Frankensteining it into something else, then what happens? And I just think that asking for informed consent from our employers, so at the time that they want to include it in some sort of AI, we would like them to then ask our permission and compensate us fairly. And then people have a right to say no. I think that those kinds of things are just, they're the kinds of things that people can understand. Even with the streaming residuals, during COVID, when everything was shut down and everybody was watching their programming, they got their new streaming services, and they, certain programs rose to the top and people watched them and watched them and watched them. And I'm sure that everybody anecdotally was like, oh, those actors are making a fortune off of this, right? Because you figure more viewership equals more pay. It's not how it works in content made for streaming.
It should, but people are very surprised to learn that it is not.
Right. So, I mean, again, I think that they're not unreasonable things that we're asking for. And hopefully, today's the day right. We go back to the table. So hopefully there will be meaningful dialogue about this now. And we can come to some sort of agreement.
So after the WGA came to their agreement last week, does that give you a little bit more hope about a deal that can be struck with the actors and in the current negotiation, or do you feel like it's two completely separate things and you're not entirely sure where this is going? So how do you feel?
Sure. It gave me hope in the sense that the AMPTP, the writers went on strike in May, and the AMPTP went back to the table a couple of times with the writers, and it was not meaningful dialogue the previous times. And so this time they seem to be ready to actually negotiate. So in the sense that maybe now we're all ready to get back to work, I'm hopeful that this coming back to the table means they're ready to start actually having conversation. I'm not talking out of school. It was well publicized that with our contract, it ended at the end of June, and they asked for a 12-day extension, and we gave it to them, gave them another 12 days. And in that time, they met with us a handful of times. There was no meaningful progress made on any of the topics. But in the meantime, they had their premieres and, they get to do all those things that we're not doing right now because we're on strike, right? And then at the 11th hour on the 12th, the last day, they asked for federal mediators to come. And so federal mediators came, and then the AMPTP didn't even talk to them. Only the SAG-AFTRA talked to them. And then at the end of the day, they said, oh, just give us 3 more days. And we
Hmm.
said, you can have all the time you want, but we're going to withhold our services. We're going on strike. Because like at some point, it's how many more premieres are you going to squeeze in? Like,
Right,
it
right.
really wasn't about, oh, we're making like if they had been making progress, if they said, well, we can't meet you here, but we've got a little bit here, and let us keep talking on this, that would have been one thing, but that wasn't what was happening. So our stance has always been, at any moment, the AMPTP could say, we want to come back to the table, and SAG-AFTRA was like, okay, we're ready.
Hmm.
So again, the hope is that this is going to be meaningful dialogue, and that, it's the way these negotiations work. Each side has a big package of stuff, and you have to kind of work through point by point, and everything's a give and take. As I always say about negotiations, not a shopping expedition. We can't just say, oh, we want all these things and get them. It's actually calculated out mathematically, the
Hmm.
value of things, and then there's a across the table, try to balance, the give and take of the dollars. So even things that actually don't cost them anything at all will have a value based on, the
Right.
negotiation.
That's interesting. And there's so many details, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much fine print and loopholes and things that, right, we want to make sure are closed and um, that benefit the majority of people in the long run. So I guess I want to close out with your final thoughts on where we're going and what we need to continue to do until this strike is officially over. Because it sounds like through your story, it's the vigilance of members like yourself in the union that are not letting these productions get away with things, right? And they're going to try to until there is an actual deal struck. So I wanted to end with, yeah, your final thoughts and what we need to do until this is over.
Thanks. I mean, I think the big thing is, especially on social media, you know, posting support, just hashtag SAG-AFTRA strike, hashtag SAG-AFTRA strong, and just the messages of support are coming through. And I think that there was a sense that we would not have the level of support that we did, and it's been really overwhelming, and positive. Um, and yeah, I mean, just keeping eyes and ears out. There shouldn't. There are some productions that have interim agreements, and so essentially they have agreed to the terms that we're asking for in order to go forward their projects. And they're projects that are independent. They're not with our bargain anybody that would be part of our bargaining partners. So not a member of the AMPTP. So there absolutely could be work going on out there, but anyone could reach out to a local SAG-AFTRA office and just say, hey, seeing this filming, I'm just checking in. Is that like kosher? Is that something that's
Hmm.
supposed to be happening? But yeah, really just keeping up the messaging that folks support SAG-AFTRA in this effort, and support a fair contract for SAG-AFTRA members is really, it's meaningful, and it lifts our spirits for everybody that's been out of work all this time, to just keep getting that messaging. I'm telling you, I just wearing my SAG-AFTRA shirt, in the grocery store, and having someone stop me and say, hey, you're on strike and I support you. Like, it just means a lot.
Yeah.
So I would say those kinds of things. And hopefully this gets resolved soon and we can all get back to work.
All right, thank you, Michele Proude, for joining us on the Hub on Hollywood. Fantastic interview, Jamie. Be sure to follow us for any and every latest updates regarding the actors' strike. We brought you the latest details when the writer's strike came to an end. So again, be sure to follow us at Hub on Hollywood, as well as Jamie and I on our personal accounts. Myself at James Rojas MMJ on Twitter, and Jamie at JBlanco Newsy on Twitter. You can also follow us on all our other links on Instagram, and everything will be down in the bio. But great interview. But speaking about the strike, we do have some forward progress when it comes to movies that are waiting for everything to settle down and deals to be made. And one of those projects is the upcoming Fantastic Four film that's getting prepped for filming. Director Matt Shakman. He was in an interview with Collider recently, and he said the movie will begin to shoot next year in London, pending an end to the ongoing SAG-AFTRA strike. Now, while casting rumors have been all over the place, Shakman also announced that once the strike gets resolved, there will be an announcement at some point, adding that he is excited to share the details, but he just can't do it right now. The film currently set for a May 2025 release date. I'm curious, who would you cast to be the Fantastic Four? We know we've had several versions of the Fab Four, of course, the original series that had our own Captain America, Chris Evans, and Massachusetts native Chris Evans playing the Human Torch. But who would you cast to be the Human Torch? We know John Krasinski was in the latest Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness film where he played Mr. Fantastic. Will he be reprising his role? I have an inkling, I have a hunch that it won't be him, that they're going to go with just somebody entirely new. So who do you cast for the upcoming Fantastic Four film? Speaking about films, those are in the future. Some are in the present, and including in the present and the current box office is The Exorcist Believer, which is not so much of a reboot, but a continuation of the Exorcist trilogy, the Exorcist saga. But right now, they're looking to take number one at the box office this weekend. The film has made nearly $12 million on its opening day and is expected to make about $28 million through Sunday, though this is below projections, with the studio first thinking they were going to be able to pull out $35 million. However, that does not look to be the case, and I don't project or predict that will go up or improve in the weeks to come, just because The Exorcist Believer is getting killed when it comes to reviews, both critical and audience. The audience a little more easy when it comes to the critique, but right now The Exorcist Believer is coming at a 23% on the tomato meter, 57% on the audience score. On the IMDb page, it's getting 5.2 out of 10, and that's out of 5,000 reviews that have come out so far. The Exorcist Believer is about when two girls disappear into the woods and return 3 days after with no memory of what happened to them. The father of one girl seeks out Chris McNeil, who has been forever altered by what happened to her daughter 50 years ago. Chris McNeil is played by Ellen Burstyn, who, of course, was in the first Exorcist. Apparently, Linda Blair, who plays Regan, is also in this film. She is reprising her role. But from what I've seen, from what I've heard, this is not a good movie, which is not great news for the director, because the director, who is David Gordon Green, he's apparently been in this whole thing is apparently going to be a trilogy, and it kind of seems like they're have to go full steam ahead despite the reviews, despite the box office results, because from my understanding, the studio that is behind this film, they purchased the rights for hundreds of millions of dollars. And so with that much money invested into the franchise already, you kind of have to go through with part 2 and part 3 of this, again, continuation of the original Exorcist films. So I'm not quite, I love horror movies, which my knowledge will be put to the test in just a few, but just watching the trailers for this in theaters, none of this seemed very original, seemed very, rinse and repeat of what we've already seen. And, I just wasn't hooked. Maybe I'll watch it when it comes out on streaming if I feel like it. Again, according to the reviews, it may not be worth it, but as of this moment, I was not possessed to go to the movie theater to watch this film. Let me know, have you seen The Exorcist Believer? What are your thoughts? Maybe everyone else is wrong, and this is a fantastic movie, a fantastic addition to the Exorcist saga, to the franchise. Let us know down below. Now, let's just jump right into our next topic, which will be the scary movie quiz. I was looking around trying to see what maybe, there's some quizzes that are just way too easy. Some of them are like, who is the main villain in Nightmare on Elm Street? Like, okay, that's very simple. And then there's some quizzes that are just way too in the thick of it, in the weeds, that it's just beyond my knowledge. I love horror movies, but I claim to not be an expert. So I found this one on Britannica, Scary Movie Quiz, Entertainment and Pop Culture, with 10 questions that I invite you to join me on. There will be a link down in the bio. But you can watch us, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, you can watch on your screen, and we'll start taking this quiz together. And again, just 10 questions. This is let's do timed. This is a timer bonus edition. So yeah, let's see how well I do. How smart I am when it comes to horror. So, like I said, one of the first questions I didn't want to do is, this is a timer. Who is the main villain in Halloween? Michael Myers. This is going to be a very quick quiz. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre's Leatherface wears a mask made from what? Human skin? Okay, next. This is going to be a very much quicker quiz than I thought. Who directed Scream? That's going to be John Carpenter. No, Wes Craven. Wes Craven did that. Next. What real-life killer inspired Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho? Ooh. I want to go with, I don't know, Charles Manson. That's the only one I recognize. No, it's Ed Gein. I'll research that guy afterwards. Let's see. Number 5. What is the occupation of Hannibal Lecter, the serial killer who appears in such films as Silence of the Lambs? He is a psychiatrist. Yes. Next. Which of the following did not feature Jamie Lee Curtis? The Fog, Friday the 13th, Prom Night, Halloween. I'm going to say Friday the 13th. I don't believe she was in that one. Right. Okay. Early in her career, Curtis appeared in numerous horror films, becoming known as the Queen of Scream. Last question for all the marbles. Which actor played the killer in Seven? Brad Pitt, Kevin Spacey. It was Kevin Spacey. Okay. Oh, wait, this is not the last question. This is number 8. Who is the murderer in Friday the 13th? Is it Ghostface, Jason Voorhees, Pamela Voorhees? It's Pamela, the mom. And final question. This is Jason's mother was the original killer, although subsequent movies in the series cast Jason as the villain. Okay, last question. Which actor made his film debut in A Nightmare on Elm Street? Nicolas Cage, Robert Englund, Johnny Depp, or Charlie Sheen? It is, of course, Robert Englund. Yes, in the 1984 horror classic, he played Glenn Lance, a high school student who gets eaten by his bed. Oh, wait. Oh, it's Johnny Depp. I misread that question. Which actor made his film debut? That was Johnny Depp. I didn't know that, but I got that wrong. See, this is the problem with timed quizzes. The pressure's on, and you can buckle to the pressure, which I just did. Okay, last question coming up. Which of the following was not based on a Stephen King work? The Exorcist, Misery, Children of the Corn, or Cujo? That, of course, speaking of The Exorcist, was The Exorcist. The screenplay was written by William Peter Blatty, who won an Oscar for that and was adapted from his bestseller. Whew, okay. The timed quiz was a mistake. I should have not done that because I invited you to participate in this, and that may have been too quick for everybody. So let's see the results. I got 8 out of 10, which is pretty good. That's a B, like a horror B movie. All right, let us know. How did you do? Did you do timed also? That was my mistake. Let me see. I swear I saw a second quiz that I was debating whether or not to use that one. Maybe I should use that one. Let's see. Where is that quiz? Let's take a second quiz, maybe, if we can do that. Because that one was not the vibe. I was looking for a much more calmer vibe for that one. Let's see. Scary movie quiz. I did Britannica. What's Okay, this one's a little. What's this? Okay, let's try this one. I haven't read this. This is usefultrivia.com. Another link will be down in the bio. This one is not timed, and it looks like there are only 10 questions, I think. We'll try this. We'll give this a shot. There may be more. We'll see. Okay. Horror movie trivia. Number 1. What classic horror movie features a serial killer in a William Shatner mask? The Fog, Friday the 13th, Halloween, or Texas Chainsaw Massacre? That is going to be Halloween. All right, there's a little ding to there, too. Due to its shoestring budget, the prop department for Halloween had to use the cheapest mask they could find in the costume store, which was a William Shatner mask from The Devil's Reign. Number 2, in which horror movie, does the protagonist write a book that contains only the line, "All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy," repeated over and over and over? The Devil's Reign, Writer's Block, The Shining, or The Ninth Gate? I'm going to go with The Shining. Of course, that book that Jack writes in The Shining contains only the one sentence repeated over and over. Director Stanley Kubrick had each page individually typed. Back then, I think you had to do that. I'm not sure if that's like a real fun fact. I think that just was basic knowledge. Okay, what classic horror movie was originally titled The Babysitter Murders? Rosemary's Baby, Scream, A Nightmare on Elm Street, or Halloween? Since Jamie Lee Curtis, who played Laurie Strode, was a babysitter, and the only babysitter that I can think of in any of these movies was in Halloween, I'm going to guess Halloween. This one I don't know, so we'll see if this is right. Yep, I was right. John Carpenter originally intended to call the movie The Babysitter Murders, but producer Irwin Yablans thought the story might resonate more if it was based around a specific holiday, so the title was changed to Halloween. That is a fun fact. All right, number 4. How many people associated with The Exorcist died during production? 12, 3, 6, or 9? I'm going to guess 6. 6 seems like an appropriate number. There's never an appropriate number for number of deaths related to a production, but I'm going to guess 6. No, I was wrong. Was it 3? No, it wasn't 3. Oh, God. So you have 9 or 12. These are terrible numbers. Hopefully not 12. I'm going to guess 9. 9. By the end of the film's production, 9 people associated with its making had passed away, including Jack McGorwin, who played Burke Dennings, Linda Blair's grandfather, a night watchman on set, and a special effects expert. That is spooky. All right, number 5. What horror film was the first movie to show a woman in just a bra and slip? Was it The Wax Museum, Bride of Frankenstein, Psycho, or The Haunting? I'm going to guess Psycho. Psycho, final answer. Yes. In the opening scene of Psycho, Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, wears only a white bra and a half slip, having just had a midday tryst with her divorced lover in a hotel. While the scene leaves much to the modern imagination, in 1960, it was shockingly direct. All right, number 6. What color is Freddy Krueger's sweater? Red and green, red and blue, red and yellow, red and black. I believe it's red and green. If my memory is correct, yes. Craven chose to make Krueger's sweater red and green after reading the article in a 1982 Scientific American that said these two colors were the most clashing colors to the human retina. All right. Number 7. How many people does Jason kill in the first Friday the 13th film? This is a trick question. This is a trick question because Jason doesn't kill anybody in the first Friday the 13th film. It is his mother who kills everyone. Not everyone, but does all the killing. So the answer is 0. Yes. Jason's mother, Pamela, does the killing. I wish you can hear these dingings. I'll try to recreate these dingings in post. Number 8. In Scream, what is rule number 1 on Randy's list of rules for surviving a horror movie? 1, don't go outside alone. 2, don't say, I'll be right back. 3, don't drink or do drugs. That's a common trope. Or, number 4, don't have sex. Don't say, I'll be right back, because they never are. No, what? That's not the right answer? It is one of the rules. I guess it's not rule number 1. Don't go out alone, don't do drugs, don't have sex? Is that the... Okay, don't have sex is the number 1 rule. But don't say I'll be right back is among those rules. Scream itself subverts the idea that sex marks a character for certain death when Sydney sleeps with Billy, who turns out to be one of the killers. Number 9. What horror movie required the purchase of 500 Florida frogs and 100 giant South American toads? Was it Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Pet Cemetery, or The Frogs? I'm going to go with The Frogs. My wife and I were just talking about movies not too long ago, and The Frogs came up in discussion. I think we watched the trailer, and it was like comical of how the frogs were like killing people. I'm going to guess Frogs. Final answer. Yes, I'm right. Many of the 500 Florida frogs and 100 giant South American toads purchased for use in The Frogs escaped during production. That is an ecological disaster. Number 10, the final question. What was the original title of The Blob? Was it A, The Glob, B, The Spheroid, C, The Thing, or D, The Lump? My hunch says The Glob, but that would be too simple, right? It wouldn't be The Lump. Though The Blob looks a little lumpy, I don't think The Lump would be a go-to scary movie name. Okay, either The Thing or The Glob. I'm going to go with The Glob. Final answer. And guess who's right? All right, The Blob was originally going to be called The Glob until it was discovered that the title has already been used by cartoonist Walt Kelly. All right. That was the horror movie trivia. We took 2 quizzes in one sitting. Consider yourself lucky. All right. Well, that was fun. That was cool. How do I stop this recording? Well, let us know how you did. Comment down below. Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Hub on Hollywood. Again, Jamie will be back next week. But until then, check out our upcoming interview next week, where we interviewed the original cast members of Hocus Pocus, Omri Katz, Jason Marsden, Vanessa Shaw, and Thora Birch, talking about their upcoming reunion in Salem, the Witch City. And also check out last week's episode, where I spoke with the host of the Horror Squad podcast, Joe Manganaro, who was among the organizers of this event that reunites the original Hocus Pocus cast. Also check out next week's episode for a review of The Killers of the Flower Moon, the new Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio movie. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to follow us at Hub on Hollywood on all the social media platforms. Give us a like. Go ahead and subscribe to catch everything else in the future. But until then, I'm James, and we'll catch you next week.